The Shaul ber Zislin was from the first Mimim in Tevchet Mimim. He learned by the Mashpia Reb Shmuel Groinam. Later, in the year of Tafresh Ayin, he was appointed to be the Menahal and the Mashpia in the branch of Tevchet Mimim in Shtzedrin. And many of the famous Mimim were his Mechonachim, amongst them Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, Reb Lezer Karasik, Reb Yisrael Jacobson. In Tafresh Ayin Zayin, he became the Rav in Chernica. And in Tafresh Pegimel, which was already in the Fidik Rebbe's times, he was the Rav in the city of Ursha. On Zayin Sivan, Tafresh Tzadik Daled, he was Oila to Eretz Yisrael, and he became a Rav of a neighborhood in Tel Aviv called Mea Shearim. Not the Mea Shearim from Yerushalayim, but the one in Tel Aviv. And he was the Rav of the shul called Beis Shloimeh. It was a placing of the corner store ceremony, the Hanocha 7 Apina, for the building that was called Beis Tikva in Kfar Chabad. That building was going to be built in order to be able to host kids who were saved from the missionaries. So at the ceremony, Reb Shaul ber Zislin spoke, and he shared the following story. He says, years ago, a chassid told Reb Isaac Homeler, which was one of the chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, that he's suffering a lot from achshava zares. But then the chassid said to Reb Isaac Homeler that when I learn chassidus, that gives me the koyach to push the machshava zares away. So Reb Isaac Homeler told that chassid, said Reb Shaul ber, listen, my friend, in the king's palace, you have all the utensils that are found in a regular house. The only difference is that in the king's palace, they are made out of much more expensive materials. There's also a broom and a shovel in the king's palace, but the broom and the shovel in the king's palace is made out of silver and gold. Imagine a person taking this fancy schmancy broom and shovel of the palace and taking it out to the street and start to sweep regular garbage on the street with it. And the Nimshal is, says Rabbi Isaac to this chassid, that is that what chassidus was nizgala for? Chassidus is all here in order to chase away your dirty machshava zares. So Reb Shaul ber Zislin shared that at the event, and he cried and he said, who would imagine that one day chassidus will be used to what? To save kids who were chappa missionaries. Is that what Panimius HaTorah was revealed for? But then he continued and he said that, however, if that's how the Eibishter made it, that the only way to save these kids is with chassidus, so that's what has to be done. And one of the Fabrengers in Tel Aviv, Reb Shaul ber Zislin, described the iskashus of Reb Asher Nikolayever to the Rebbe Rashab. And he related, in the first years of the Rebbe Rashab, the older chassidim had a whole discussion once which ma'amorim they should learn. One big chassid said that they should devote themselves to learning Imre Bina from the Mittel Rebbe. Another chassid, says Reb Shaul ber, was pointing out the unique ma'amorim of the Tzemach Tzedek. And another chassid was saying that they should learn the ma'amorim of the Rebbe Maharash. Reb Asher Nikolayever was there then, and he wasn't from the biggest maskilim either. However, he was very devoted to the Rebbe Rashab. And he stood up and he said, I don't understand what the whole discussion is about. We need to be busy, we need to live with what the Rebbe lives. If the Rebbe is saying Ma'amorim every Shabbos, and that's what the Rebbe lives with, so there is no discussion. That's what we have to live with. That's what we have to learn. Another story that Reb Shaul ber Zislin related, that he heard from the Mashpia Reb Shmuel Groinam, about going into Yechidus. And he said like this, in the generations of the Alter Rebbe and the Mittel Rebbe, the people who walked into Yechidus were divided to three groups. First, those who had Shilas in Avodas Hashem were allowed in. Afterwards, when they finished, the second group ran in. Those are the chassidim who came to ask halacha Shilas. And then, at the end, those who had regular Gashmis, Dike Shilas, were allowed in. That was the Seder. First Avodah, then halacha, then all the Gashmis, Dike Shilas. And in the generation of the Tzemach Tzedek, all the borders, all the limits were broken, and there was no Seder, and it was a chaos, and there was no order to who goes in first. So Reb Shmuel Groinam says Reb Shaul ber, that the Chassidim of Tzemach Tzedek once spoke about it. How come that the Gashmias is coming before the Ruchnias? So the Chassidim actually turned to the Tzemach Tzedek, and they asked if they could reorganize it in such a way that first would be the Shalos and Avodah, and only then the Gashmias they could things. So the Tzemach Tzedek answered them with a mashal. He says, when you see that the cats go up on the oven, on the fireplace to warm themselves up, that is a sign that it's about to start raining. Now imagine a fool who says the following, why should I daven to Hashem for rain? Instead, let me just take the cat and put it on the fireplace. Why is he a fool? Because he doesn't get it that the cat doesn't bring the rain. The cat is just a sign about the rain. So too over here, says the Tzemach Tzedek. The Seder in Yechidus is just a sign and a natural consequence of the situation, of the status of this generation. In the previous generations, the Chassidim were into Ruchnius. That's what they cared about, mostly. And B'derech Memela, the Baalei Avodah were allowed in first to Yechidus. It wasn't like a certain Seder that was made. It just naturally happened that way. But today, Chassidim, says the Tzemach Tzedek, are less into Avodah. And therefore, naturally, the people with the Shalas and Gashmias get to go in first. Returning the Seder to the way it was before will be similar to putting the cat on top of the fireplace, hoping that will bring the rain. Another thing Reb Shaul Ber shared in the name of his Mashpia, Reb Shmuel Greinam, that he heard from his Mashpia, Reb Avram Jebener, that each Chassid needs to have a Rebbe and a Chassidish friend. Why do you need to have a Rebbe? That's obvious, because if you don't have a Rebbe, you're not a Chassid. Why do you need to have a Chassidish friend? The reason is so the friend should explain you the words of the Rebbe. The following is a story that Rabbi Yeshua Munchain related. It says it was a little bit after my Anochas Tefillin, and I wasn't yet an expert in putting them on and taking them off properly. So it happened once that I took off my Shel Roish, says Rabbi Munchain, before I took off the straps from the finger on the hand. Also, one night I said Krishma Shalamita without a yarmulke. So after those two things happened, I wrote to the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe for a tikkun for this. So the Rebbe answered right away that Yisaper ha'inyan lifnei harav moire ha'ira b'shchunasoi v'hu yoireu, which means tell this to our Rav in your neighborhood and he will tell you what to do. So the Rav in my neighborhood wasn't a Chassid, so therefore I turned to Reb Shaul Ber Zislin, which was in a different neighborhood. So Rabbi Zislin read the letter, and he asked me, which neighborhood do you live in? So I told him, which neighborhood I live in? So he said, if so, you can't come to me. The Rebbe didn't send you to me. And he didn't even want to hear what happened. He just sent me away. And from this we learn that when the Rebbe says something, the Rebbe means every word. Another story that Rabbi Shaul Ber Zislin once related was once a Yugerman who was not a Lubavitcher Chassid, who was supported by his father-in-law, meaning that his father-in-law paid for his parnasa so he could sit and learn Torah. This was in the times of the Alter Rebbe. After a while, he discovered the light of Chassidus, and he traveled to the Alter Rebbe. The father-in-law got all upset, and he traveled also to Liyazna, to the Alter Rebbe. And when he met his son-in-law, he saw that his Yiras Shemayim stayed the same, but his asmada in learning is not as good as he used to be. So this father-in-law went into the Alter Rebbe and he complained, before my son-in-law was a Chassid, he learned more, and now he's learning less. So the Alter Rebbe answered him, before your son-in-law became a Chassid, he learned for the cat. But today, he's learning for the Eibishter. And the Alter Rebbe explains, as beforehand, your son-in-law used to waste his time in his room. But whenever he heard a sound by the door, he would quickly open up the Gemara and learn, because he was afraid maybe it's his father-in-law and mother-in-law about to go in. But then he would open the door and see it was just a cat. But today, he's just learning for the Eibishter. And when you show up, he closes the sefer because he doesn't want to learn for your sake. This is a story that Shaul Ber Zislin related. Now, what's the source of the story? So Reb Mendel Marazov Alav Shalom says that when his family lived in Leningrad, he was sent to learn with his younger brother in Nevel. And they had a Chassidish Melamed. And every morning, he told us many Chassidish Maises. So before Rosh Hashanah, says Reb Mendel Marazov, we returned home we traveled by train. So during the trip, I like to cause trouble. So I opened up different bedrooms on a train. One of the bedrooms that I opened up sat a older Yid with a long white beard. And he motioned to me that I should come close to him. Who was it? It was Reb Meir Simcha Chaim. He sat me on his laps, and he asked me to tell him a Chassidish Maisa that I heard from my Malabed. So I told him this story that we just shared before from Shaul Ber Zislin about the son-in-law. That I heard that from my Melamed in Nevel. Afterwards, says Reb Mendel Marazov, I came home, And by the Shabbos Suda, I caused a little bit of trouble. But suddenly, my father, Reb Chani Morozov, called me over, and he asked me to repeat the story. So I repeated the story, and Reb Shaul Ber Zisslin was there by the Shabbos Suda. He was shaking back and forth, and looks like his face was quite excited. Afterwards, Reb Shaul Ber Zisslin said, by the Suda, says Reb Mendel Morozov, that he heard the story from the Rebbetzin of the Rebbe Rashab, that she said that she heard that in my name. So what it seems like that happened is that Mary Simcha Chaim enjoyed so much the Chassidish Chinuch and the story that he heard from this boy on the train that he related that to the Rebbe Rashab's Rebbetzin. Reb Shaul Ber Zisslin related that after a few years of learning in Temchet Mimim, he returned home to his parents' house. And on Shabbos, he davened ba'avodah for many hours and he stayed alone in the shul. So a certain local maskil returned to shul after he finished his seudah. And when he saw me davening ba'avodah, he was quite curious to see who it is. So when he saw that it was Reb Shaul Ber Zisslin, this maskil said, the world was about to be fixed. And suddenly came the Lubavitcher Rebbe with his Temchet Mimim, and he pushed it off 50 years further. So when Reb Shaul Ber Zisslin came to Lubavitch, he related that to the Rebbe Rashab. He said that this maskil said that the Rebbe Rashab brought the world back 50 years. So the Rebbe Rashab enjoyed it, and he said, not 50 years and not even 100 years, until Mashiach will come. There was once a Yutes Kislev Farbrengen in Tel Aviv. And in that Yutes Kislev Farbrengen, they honored a certain Rav who was not a Chassid to speak. He spoke, and he spoke in a way that Chassidish ears couldn't tolerate. He said things that don't fit very well with Chassidus. And the crowd was getting very uncomfortable. Afterwards, Reb Shaul Ber Zisslin turned to him and he said, there are two Ma'amar Chazal that seem to be contradicting. On one hand, it says that the woman has a bigger desire to get married than the man. From there we see that the recipient, the Mekabel, has a bigger taiva to be Mekabel than the Mashpia. But on the other hand, it says that more than the calf wants to nurse, the cow wants to nurse him, meaning that the mother wants to feed more than the baby wants to eat. So from there it seems like the Mashpia, the giver, has a bigger desire. So which one is it? So the answer is, said Reb Shaul Ber to that Rav, that depends if you're talking about a behema or a human. When it comes to a human, so then the human desire is to receive, to be mekabel, to hear what the other one has to say. But a behema doesn't want to be mekabel from anyone. A behema just wants to share with everyone its opinion. We'll finish off with a nigun on the haneret halalu. And it's an old Lubavitcher nigun. Interestingly, there is a nigun from Reb Aaron Charitonov on Sheishanas Yaakov and Purim, which if you listen to that, you notice that the first half of this haneret halalu and the first half of that Sheishanas Yaakov are basically identical. Just the second half changes. So I'm not sure what's the source of this nigun. Maybe Aaron Charitonov made this one too. Maybe not. We'll play it sung by Reb David Horowitz Sheyichya.
Hanero is halalu, no madlikin, alachu es vial, anisim vial, aniflois, sheosiso, lameseinu, Vayomim Ohem Bizeman Hazeh Ayedei Keanecho HaKedoshim V'chol Shemoy Nas Yemei Chanukah Hanero is halalu Kodesh Kodeshim V'yei lanu reshus V'hishtamesh bohein V'yei lanu reshus V'hishtamesh bohein Ela li roishon bilevod Yalla da-da-da-da, my-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ma-ma-ma, iti-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. כדי להוידויס להלל לשמך הגודל להוידויס להלל לשמך הגודל להוידויס להלל לשמך הגודל על ניסך ויעל נפלסך ויעל ישוע יסך